Let me try to figure that one out. Sorry. Okay, Can?
Yeah, my cutting.
Okay, we're streaming.
All right. Oh. Wait.
So, Kanani, if you could do the intro.
Yeah. Okay. Aloha kako. Just wanted to remind everybody to go ahead and check out the two Lei Nahono Keelikolani albums on Melody.com before we get our presentation started. Oh. Aloha mai kako. Mahalo everyone for joining us this evening. The Na'ai o Maui Cultural Center and Hui Aloha Aina Ola Haina is co-sponsoring this event with HK West Maui Community Benefit Fund, a nonprofit in West Maui, UH Maui College, Hawaiian Studies Department, and the Kue Petition Hui. This is the second year running of the West Maui Kanaka Scholar Series. We proudly present this to you via Zoom and live through HK West Maui's Facebook page. Tonight's presentation, Ilala Mau na Hula Ilalaole he Keelikolani ina kuhilima o na hula a Joseph Keelikolani Ilalaole o Kamehameha by Dr. Kekoa Harman. Dr. Kekoa Harman was born and raised on Maui. Dr. Kekoa Harman is an associate professor of Hawaiian Studies at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. He holds a doctoral degree in Hawaiian and Indigenous language and cultural revitalization. Mahalo. Dr. Harman is going to discuss his dissertation tonight, which analyzes the kuhilima, or the hand motions that accompany hula chants within the 18 hula developed by Joseph Keelikolani Ilalaole o Kamehameha. He and Kumu Hula Pelehonua Mea Pukui Sugunuma Harman founded Halawi Kaleo Ola Onamamo, perhaps the only hula halau taught exclusively in Hawaiian language or Olelo Hawaii. Mahalo and welcome with a virtual round of applause for Dr. Kekoa Harman. Mahalo.
He ui heni nau e ui a kua nau ia oi ai hea ka vai a kāne. Ai I kahi kina ka la puka I hae hae. Ai I leila ka vai a kāne. E ui a kua nau ia oi ai hea ka vai a kāne. Ai I kaulana ka la puka I ka pai o pui ke kai ea mai ana mani hoa ma ka mole mai ole hua ai I leila ka vai a kāne. E ui a kua nau ia oi ai hea ka vai a kāne. Ai I ke kua hiwi, ke kua lono I ke awawa I ke kahawai. Ai I leila ka vai a kāne. E ui a kua nau ia oi ai hea ka vai a kāne. Ai I kai I ka mona I ke kualau, I ke anue nue, I ka punoho, I ka ua koko, I ka alewa lewa. Ai I leila ka vai a kāne. E ui a kua nau ia oi ai hea ka vai a kāne. Ai I luna ka vai a kāne, I ke auli, I ke au ele ele, I ke au pano pano, I ke au pōpolo hua mea kāne lai. Ai I leila ka vai a kāne. E ui a kua nau ia oi ai hea ka vai a kāne. Ai I lalo I ta honua, I ka vai hui, ka vai kau a kāne me kanaloa. He vai puna, he vai inu, he vai mana, he vai ola. He ola noa. Nule e na Kanaka e akua ko ana ma kia wahi kia ka hua pa o Facebook. Ma kia wa I wā no hoi. Aloha nui kako. Ola kako. My name is Kekoa Harman. And I'm very thankful to be with all of you this evening for this West Maui Kanaka Scholars. Being a kama from Maui, I was very thankful to have this invitation to speak about this particular topic. My dissertation, my pepalai ula, about Joseph Keelikolani Ilalaole o Kamehameha. This particular, the title of my dissertation, Ilala Mauna Hula Ilalaole, that there will be continue to be branches and lineages of the dances of Ilalaole, so this continues to live on. This is a picture of Joseph Ilalaole, a picture that was shared with me by Uncle Kimo Alama Keolana. And it really captures this kane, here, with his ipu, standing regally and able to see that he is a man of hula. these are some things that I'll share with you this evening, knowing that we have a brief time together. Short introduction of who I am, and then delve into this, the focus of this talk this evening, Joseph Keelikolani Ilalaole and his legacy of Hula. And then I'll share a little bit about how I actually arrived at this topic, which is, as we all know, it's pretty interesting when we look at the different journeys that we have throughout life, but how I arrived at this particular topic. And then my research, my methodology, how I went about this research, and then how I went about analyzing the hand motions. So my topic focuses on Joseph Ilalaole, but really getting to know him through these motions of these 18 dances that I looked at, and then the findings of my research. I cannot help but introduce my kupuna, Hanahihi Serrano, and we have my grandmother, Josephine Klanionamoku Park, Uncle John Della Torre, Uncle Joe Della Torre, and my Auntie Jane Caban. But my family actually comes from Honokoi, Lahaina side. So when I actually got this invitation, I was very excited to be able to possibly go back to Maui to speak. So I was kind of holding out for a while when Bianca emailed me, and I said, oh, no, I'm going to wait until this period of time is over. But as we know, we're in it right now, so we'll do it virtual for now. But I'm very thankful to my kupuna and my aina hanai. I'm thankful to my teachers who have taught me throughout the years, Hawaiian language, Hula, and people who have advised me and nurtured me throughout the years. Joseph Keelikolani Ilalaole lived from 1873 to 1965. And it's important for us to, looking at his name, Keelikolani Ilalaole, he know ho'omana'o, remembering Kamehameha and his particular lineage to Kamehameha. Joseph Ilalaole lived in this time towards the tail end of the 19th century, all the way into the middle of the 20th century. So in many ways, he serves as this bridge from these chants that were known to him and his family, and how they carried on even after Ho'okahuli Opuni, the overthrow, and how he continued these dances and still saw the importance of these dances. Although we no longer had a monarchy, that he realized that he had an important responsibility to continue these dances of the Kume'mea and also some of the mele of the Kalakaua family. So Joseph Ilalaole, born in 1873 in Kaueleo, Puna, a native speaker of Hawaiian language. He was a Manaleo, raised in Opihikau, exposed to hula from his childhood. His grandfather was a hula practitioner in Hilea Ka'u. So for those of us who are familiar with the Puna and Ka'u areas, there are a lot of families that have connections. And Ilalaole's ancestors are the Kamehameha family. He's a descendant of Alapa'i Nui, and that's how he's connected to Kamehameha I through that lineage. In a particular interview that Joseph Ilalaole had with Mary Kovena Pukui, he recalled the visit of Queen Emalani to his family home in Puna. He lived with Princess Ruth Keelikolani in her home Keoa while he attended the Royal School in Honolulu for a brief period of time. And then he went back to Hawaii Island at the beginning of the 20th century, where he served as a police officer on Hawaii Island from 1900 to 1925. And then he went back to Oahu and lived in Honolulu from 1925 to 1965 and worked as a janitor at Ka'ahumanu School in Honolulu and taught hula in Honolulu. There's a particular picture that Uncle Kimo shared with us, and he has Lauhala behind him. And Uncle Kimo mentioned to us that he did all of the weaving. And as we know, people from Puna Paya Ala Ika Hala, that it's famous for the hala groves that they're there in Puna. So this particular skill of weaving was something that he was very familiar with also. So all the way until his passing in 1965, he lived in Honolulu. And then Kimo Alama Keolana, how I actually arrived at this particular topic, as he is our kumuhula. He is a kumuhula of Pele and I, along with our hula brothers and sisters, Anakala Kimo Alama Keolana. I'm very thankful to Uncle Kimo for all of his knowledge. When I was embarking on this journey of looking for a topic, I actually visited his home in Nanakuli many weekends, a couple weekends every month, to actually talk with him and to kind of sort out to see what type of, where I would go as far as my topic on hula. So I would bring over food, and Uncle would make, he made a big pot of pipiku and poi, and we would sit for hours, and he would share with me what he learned, his stories about hula, which I could just listen to all day. But through our discussions, through kekolekole ana, kaipu, eating together, I was able to arrive at this topic on Joseph Ilalaole because of the dances that he actually taught us in our Papa Uniki that we graduated from in 2012. Pele Honua Mea, my wife and I, that he helped me to focus in on this. And for me to see that with my background in Hawaiian language and my knowledge in these hula that he taught us, that this would be something that I could focus on. In arriving at this topic, though, there are some things that I wasn't sure how to do, especially as far as documenting hula and how I would go about this. But I'll never forget Uncle Kimo's advice as far as thinking about how this could possibly benefit people who practice this, who practice hula. So for me to be able to print the lyrics of these mele and then to come up with images and to use video as a means of documenting this, to be able to see the footwork and the hand motions in a very clear way, was something that I'll forever be grateful to Uncle Kimo for his direction and his guidance in this. But his connection to Joseph Ilalaole is through Adeline Maunu Pauli, who was his first kumuhula, and she was a student of Joseph Ilalaole. And also through Betty Atkinson, who's a Kaikamahine Hanai, an adopted daughter of Joseph Ilalaole. And also through Pat Namaka Bacon, who also shared these dances and shared her knowledge about these dances of Joseph Ilalaole with Uncle Kimo. So that's the lineage there, from Joseph Ilalaole to Adeline Maunu Pauli, Betty Atkinson, Pat Namaka Bacon, all three of them contributing to the knowledge of Kimo Lama Keolana on these dances of Joseph Ilalaole. Oh wait, oh yeah, Nolila na hula. So in looking over the various dances, I did ask Uncle Kimo what would be the dances that epitomize Joseph Ilalaole's dances. And for me, knowing that I would primarily focus on the kuhilima, the hand motions of these dances, to be able to show this connection between the language of the chants and these motions that capture the language in a concrete form, in a body form. So when we looked at these different chants, we came up with these 18 that we would focus on. So akaluno pu'onioni, and outside of these main categories that we look at today as far as hula kahiko and hula awana, these dances also have very specific categories that hula dancers know. Yeah, akaluno pu'onioni, he hula noho, and he hula ili ili. Yeah, hula ili ili. Hole wai mea, he hula ala a papa. Yeah, hula ala a papa. Puna kamakani, he hula noho a he hula kuhi lima, focusing primarily on the hand movements. Kona kai opoi i kalai, he hula olapa, and also a hula kala'au. Ahilo au, hula olapa, and also a hula pa'i umauma. Ai I Honolulu ku'upohaku, he hula olapa, yeah, and a standing dance. Ula noveo, a hula olapa. And then we have kalalea, a hula uli uli, which is also a hula olapa. Kanani ha'ena, he hula olapa, he hula ku'iluna, standing dance. Ai ka opua kole nani, he hula olapa, and a standing dance. Nokeano ahi ahi, a hula pu'ili. And then kalakaua he noa, a hula olapa, and a standing dance. Kalakaua he hula aika velu, yeah? Or some people call that particular footwork the kalakaua. Ya oe kala, a hula olapa, a standing dance. Helohanuna pua, hula olapa, also a standing dance. Lili ue, hula olapa, standing dance. Also a hula ai uehe. And then punana kamanu. And this could possibly be classified, according to Amy Stillman, as a hula ala papa because we have the changes in the length of the line and then the rhythm of this mele mai. Yeah, mele mai. And then hale hale ke aloha I haiku or kiave o opa. Yeah, that's a hula ho'i. And it could also be classified as a hula ala papa, and because of the varying rhythms, beats, and the length of each line. And there's no ha'ina in that particular type of mele. Ile'a ka hula I ka ho'opa'a. So this is a very important part of my dissertation, to understand that if there is no language, there is no olelo Hawaii, there is no hula. So to get to the lyrics of each of these 18 mele is a very important part of my research. So to document each of the mele, each of the chants, and then also to add diacritical markings to it, and then to do some research for these places and for some of the meanings of these words. Perhaps it may be a more archaic word that's used, or a place name that we hardly hear today. So that was what I did with my footnotes and also additional research, along with the information that was shared by Nakala Kimo for the background story for each of these mele. So paying close attention to the lyrics and the mo'olelo that goes with each of these mele. And Ile'a ka hula I ka ho'opa'a. The hula is fun because of the ho'opa'a. And we know that a chanter and a good drummer who's able to capture the feeling of the chant has a strong relationship with the dancer. So if the language and the feeling is there, there's a relationship that goes with that the dancer can tap into that energy from the ho'opa'a. Then kanani ha'ena. So I'm going to share this particular mele paipu that was shared with me by Anakala Kimo Keolana, and is danced by Frank Kaiu Damis. So we'll take a look at this, and I want all of you to actually give you a little ha'avina for you folks to take a look at this and pick up on words that are emphasized, because this was a big part of my research, to look at each of these dances, look at the lyrics that were emphasized with the kuhilimo, with the gestures, and to see where that emphasis lies. For those who are hula dancers, we know that, and kumuhula, that you cannot have gestures for every single word. So what are those words that were important? So this is something that Joseph Ilalaole had to think about. What are those words that are of utmost importance that will be able to convey a meaning or a feeling? So let's take a look at Kanani Ha'ena.
Kanani Ha'ena.
Oh yeah, Kaliki, yeah. Oh yeah.
Is a hula no hopai ipu.
Peki ihope.
Kanani Ha'ena is a hula no hopai ipu, also called a hula no hopai ipu. Some people call this kind of hula a hula kuolo or hula noho kuolo. But a hula noho kuolo has kuolo movements in it. The kuolo movements are the rubbing on your upper leg or on the floor, but this hula doesn't have any of that. Now, this dance was very special to Mr. Ilalaole because this dance is dedicated to Queen Emma. Queen Emma was Mr. Ilalaole's favorite ali'i, and for good reason. Mr. Ilalaole was a relative to the Kamehameha family. This is another one of the important things about the Ilalaole dances, is that in his repertory, he had preserved many dances for the Kamehameha family. That's important to remember, because when the Kalakaua dynasty came over, people were doing hula for the Kalakauas and Queen Kapi'olani. So many of the old dances for Kamehameha and the Kamehameha family were forgotten and not done anymore. But Ilalaole saved them for us. So a lot of the hulas we have today for the Kamehameha family, we can trace back to Mr. Ilalaole. Now, when Queen Emma and her family used to come through Ka'u and Puna, they would actually visit the Ilalaole home. And there was a chair in Mr. Ilalaole's home, so I was told, where Queen Emma used to sit. And because the queen sat on that chair, and all that she touches becomes kapu. So no one was allowed to sit in that chair but Queen Emma herself. As a matter of fact, Mr. Ilalaole also lived with Princess Ruth in his boyhood here in Oahu. And so the Queen Emma dances are very, very special. This particular dance, from what I have found out later, is when Mrs. Pukui and Auntie Pat Bacon had gone to Mr. Ilalaole to hula in the 1930s. I think it's going to be like 1936. Auntie Pat told me that they were only supposed to be there for maybe 6 months or not even over a year. But Mrs. Pukui's grandmother was a court dancer for Queen Emma. And so Mrs. Pukui had written down words for many of Queen Emma's chants, and she shared them with Mr. Ilalaole. So Mr. Ilalaole had gone over these mele, and whatever he could recall or reconstruct, he did. Kanani Ha'ena, I believe, is one of those hulas, and it's always been one of my favorites too. And here we're going to have Frank dance it, because he actually danced it at Ha'ena. And the ipu he's using belonged to my teacher, Adelaide Maulu Pauli.
Ai kanani I Ha'ena. Ai kanani I Ha'ena. E noho ana me hopo we. Ai kanani I Ha'ena. E noho ana me hopo we. Kawahine amiho nanahuki. Ke ha'amai nei kamoana. Kawahine amiho nanahuki. Ke ha'amai nei kamoana. Kalihi o kamalama. Wahiki no me ke aloha. Kalihi o kamalama, ua hiki no me ke aloha. Ahea mai o ka velo hea, ai au e malani ila ila. Ahea mai o ka velo hea, ai au e malani ila ila. Le naha ke iki ki a manu, o ka ukanu o olaha. Me naha ke iki ki a manu, o ka ukanu o olaha. Haina ia mai ka puahana, I lohe ai I ke kohukohou. Haina ia mai ka puahana, I lohe ai I ke kohukohou. Ei noa no emalani.
Oh, yeah, ino no imalan. Yeah, mahalo I ka ho'omana nui ke ho'i nei I ka poka mana. O ia, no leila, ke la mele ke kahi. Kanani ha'ena, one of my favorite motions is the kalihilihi o ka malama. The way those particular gestures uses the lihilihi o ka maka, the lashes of Frank in doing that particular motion to convey that's the rays of the moon. But to be able to use that and to understand that as a dancer, to use the parts of your body to convey that meaning. So that's a particular example that we can look at from Kanani Ha'ena. And hopefully you folks have, you had other examples that you noticed throughout that mele. He hale ke kino no ka mana'o, that the body is a house for our thoughts. So our ability to actually to show these mahalo nui. Lucky ayabo makahale. It's good to be at home where my my wife can tell me that you folks aren't seeing the slide. So let's fix this right now. Mahalo nui. Oh yeah. He hale ke kino no ka mana'o. So in looking over these particular chants, after we had actually videotaped each of the mele and the 18 chants, and nui ko mahalo, I'm so thankful to Kaipo Ki'aha and OEV TV for sharing that with me, to help me actually find a way to videotape these mele. So what I did was, once actually these 18 mele were recorded, I actually went back to the lyrics and then watched each of the videos to mark and take still images from the videos to show which words are being emphasized. So what I did was mark which words throughout each of the chants were emphasized and then put a still image together with that to show the connection between the lyric and then the image. So this is an example here for Puana Kamakani, Kuhilima for Ka'ahumanu. What words were actually emphasized through the motions. So we see here Pua, Makani, Nahala, and then Va'a, which is an interesting thing that I was so amazed to see the ingenuity there to be able to look at a name such as Malele Va'a, but to focus on this particular motion for a Va'a and just to focus on that particular part of the word of a name. And the same goes with Wai Aloha, to focus on that word aloha. So this is an example of what I did for each of the mele, and to put together 311 words with the images to show the connection between the two. And that's what was documented in my dissertation. And then to also look for patterns of what words were prominently used, focused on, emphasized with the motion. And I can't help but get back to something that Uncle Kimo shared with me about the mele ya Oyakala e Alohinei that was written for Kalakaua before he went on his voyage, that even for the haku mele, it was important that the haku mele chose those words that would emphasize things that are good, things that are pono. I believe the same thing went with the actual motions. Those aspects of the mele that convey that beauty, good, pono, all of these things, not only the mele, but through the motions that are emphasized. So this is some of what I did for each of the mele. So we have here makani pona kamakani, and this particular motion for the hala, and then this motion on the corner here, as I shared with you folks, malele va'a is a name, but the motion that's being focused on here is the va'a, all from the mele pona kamakani. No ka hua o keia noiina. No ka hua o keia noiina. It's very important for me to understand this relationship of the kuhilima and the lyrics and how these came together to get into the mindset, the perspective of Joseph Ilalaole. So my dissertation was not about his life or what he did, but to try and understand his perspective as a native speaker and the motions that are used for his dances. Living in the year 2020, to know, even as a language speaker who learned a lot of my language at the university, although my grandmother, Hanahihi'o Serrano, was a Manaleo, native speaker in Lahaina, I am still longing to understand, to have a better understanding of what a native speaker saw in his or her world. So the importance of Hawaiian language and the understanding of traditional hula in order to interpret emphasis. It still blows me away, especially when I look at mele such as Holewaimea and Keawe o Opa, Hale Hale Ke Aloha Iha Ikue. There are so many words in these chants. But when you look at the chants, it's very obvious that certain words are focused upon. But to know which ones to focus upon is something that still amazes me. And there are different versions of Holewaimea, but for the Ilalaole version, very similar for those of you who have seen Iolani Luahine dancing Holewaimea. in that video, it's a very lengthy chant, but there are certain words that are focused upon. Kapua. So these words here that I share with you are words and kuhilima, gestures that were found throughout the 18 mele that I looked at. So pua, which is a very interesting thing because there are all different types of pua. But no matter what the pua was, whether it be a pua o Hawaii, pua avapuhi, pua ilima, pua ko'olau, all the pua were the same. They may be placed differently, but for the most part, they're all the same. Keku, and this is something that it was very interesting for me to look at all the motions that would talk about ku or talking about a place outside of the body. And I'm mainly speaking for the standing hula, are on the side of the body in this way. So when we talk aiai i honolulu ku'upohaku, the hands are on the side like this. So if it's a place outside of the body of the olapa, it was placed on the side in this way. And the more I look at different types of hula, you see patterns there, especially for traditional hula, that this was something that was probably done for that word or for places outside the body. Kalei, in Ilalaole's hula, and Uncle Kimo shared with us that there are a lot of this type of motion for the lei, that you do not go above the head of the ali'i. So when you place a lei, it's right here. You don't go past the lai. So that was a particular motion of Ilalaole. Kapali in this way, seen in a few of his dances, of the 18 dances, the same motion. Kaua in this way, coming from above in this way. Different from some of the more contemporary motions we see for ua. And then kai, we have this throughout all of his mele for kai, kealoha. And important to note here for aloha, the movement of the fingers are especially important for aloha. And then ike, there are a few motions for this, but this gives us an interesting perspective as to how view the world when we look at ike to see or knowledge. But we have this type of ike, we have this type of ike in his dances, and then in Ula Novel, we have looking through kind of like a ohenana or a telescope for ike. So we can see through his dances how this this type of interaction with what's happening in the world around him changed through even a word such as ike, through sight, through knowledge. The difficulty of expressing meaning solely through hand movements using ili and kala'au. I didn't even think about this until I had to analyze hand motions. But for hula ili and for hula kala'au, you don't have a free hand like you usually do for a hula uli or a hula pu'ili or even a hula puniu, that you have two hands using this implement. So for someone to create a dance that truly connects to the words of the chant, you need to have a good understanding of the language. So in these two dances, Akaluna o Pu'onioni and Konakai o Pua, the ability to convey the meaning through these movements without even having a hand free. And that's seen in his dances of Akaluna o Pu'onioni and Konakai o Pua. The dancer's fingers play an important role in conveying the meaning of the chant, Kaipo, Kealoha, Me Keanu. And this actually came to me after having a good lunch with Uncle Kimo and Frank Kaiu Damis at Golden Duck in Honolulu. After going outside of the restaurant and then in the parking lot, Uncle, these motions are so similar, Kaipo, Kealoha, and Anu. And I'm so thankful for his explanation there that, for Ipo and Kealoha, that you have a movement because it's a living thing. This this aloha. But whereas anu, where we see that particular motion in Holewei Mea, there is no movement to the fingers. So the dancer's fingers, and sometimes in this day and age with competition and uniformity, we sometimes forget about this, how important fingers are in expressing. And we see that in dancers such as Iolani Luahine, that type of expressive quality in the fingers. The dancer's presence or demeanor based on understanding of language adds emphasis to the a'ano or stative words that cannot be expressed with motion. So when you look at words such as a'ala, fragrance, or pumehana, when someone is very warm, or nohea, and even noveo, as we see in lili'ue nohonanimai, lili'ue, that if the dancer does not express that feeling through his or her dancing, you cannot understand what that means. Even if something was a'ala and there's no type of smell or a feeling that goes with that, or even pumehana. Pumehana vale ho'ia aina in konakai o pua, to show in the expression that is a place that is pumehana or warm. Well, that comes from the dancer and his or her understanding of the language and how that can be conveyed through expression. Okay, so this is my question to all of you, especially after this research. How do we continue to connect to the language and the land in a way that those before us did, so that it is reflected in what we create today? In looking at Ilalaole's dances and the patterns I saw in the gestures used in connection to the lyrics, we realized that, kupuna, the elders had a very strong, especially native speakers, connection to the language and understanding of the language in a way that we're still working towards today. And our connection to the land, to know what these aspects of the land feel like, what the wind feels like, what the rain feels like, how plants grow, how birds fly, all of these aspects of our landscape, and how we truly understand that so that we can show that on our bodies, Kino Kanaka, in the same way that Ilalaole created his dances. So it's inspiring. It's inspiring to look at these aspects of traditional hula and to know that we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility today to connect with the language, to connect with our land, and to have a strong foundation as far as traditional hula, so that we're able to create in the same way that our kupuna did. So that's my leo pai, my encouraging words to everyone, especially you have a love for mele, a love for hula, that we continue to do so, so that we create things today that really connect to the lineage of these dances, chants, songs that were created before us. So our responsibility also lies in teaching the next generation. Pele and I both believe, Pele Honua Mea and I both believe that it's very important that we teach our own keiki to dance and chant, and also our haumana, halawi kaliola ona mamo, to understand these chants and the words that go with it, so that they're able to internalize these aspects of the hula, so that it continues to live on. And hopefully we can share that with everyone. Nolila, oya valeno no kamanava. But I'm so thankful to be with you folks. I know for many of us, ole puka pinipini iwaho kahale, we're not able to get out too often, but to know that I'm connecting with you folks here on Facebook Live, and to have an opportunity to interact a little bit based on this particular topic. If you folks have any questions or thoughts, I welcome that right now.
Bianca is the reader of the questions, so she has them.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Maybe her thing went mute.
Sorry, I have two mute buttons. This is Bianca. My fault. So we have two kind of similar questions. One is, were gestures used as a way to clarify dialectical variations and the words of a chant for speakers in a different place? And then also kind of related, you mentioned like hula ala pa'a, hula noho, hula huilima, different kinds of hula. And are they each from different time periods or places? Like what distinguishes them besides that they're different?
Okay, so for that first question, the gestures, the kuhilima, those are primarily just the motions of the dances. So with that, I didn't analyze any of the footwork. So those are all the kuhilima of those 18 chants that I looked at. For the different categories for these different mele, that's one thing I'm hoping in this day and age we can have more dialogue and ho'ona'oau educating people to the different types of categories of hula, because you know, hula there are so many different functions and purposes for hula. For these particular mele, we see though that the primary function was to honor ali'i, himo mele noa, chants that honor ali'i. So for these different types of chants, we have seated dances. We have dances that are danced with ili, or the pu'ili, the split bamboo, kala'au, danced with the sticks, hula uli with a feather rattle, hula paipu, as I shared with you folks, kanani ha'ena, is danced with an ipu, a seated dance with an ipu. But these are different ways of looking at the dances specifically based on the implement used with the hula. So we have that aspect. And then we also have these categories as the hula ala'apapa and hula olapa. When we look at the ala'apapa, to mainly honor gods and ali'i, and then hula olapa to honor ali'i. And we also have hula olapa that honors more humanly things, such as aloha, aloha Kanaka. But we see differences for the hula ala'apapa in very broad strokes for the hula ala'apapa and hula olapa. Hula ala'apapa, you have varying rhythms throughout that mele, and then there isn't a set number of lines for each of the oki, or the stanza in which it's laid out in, like the hula ola'apapa, where you commonly have the hula ola'apa, you commonly have 2 lines for each verse, and then you have 4 beats per line, and then you commonly see a ha'ina at the end of hula ola'apa. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Mahalo. We have another question from Kalpana Rebecca Kahalevai Kamaka. Ovai Kainoa no Kekahi Oli, or what is the name of the first chant?
The first chant that I shared with you folks this evening, the one I did?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah, Himele no Kane, or Aihea Kawaya Kane. So that particular chant, I wanted to start with that to focus on ola, that we get our life from water. So, ola kako, ola.
So two more questions. So are other researchers also attempting to put together knowledge based on the perspective or emphasis of Manoleo, like you did for Ilalaole? Or is this are other people doing this kind of research?
I hope so. I hope so. That's one thing that I look forward to in this period of time, as we have more Hawaiian language speakers, that we will be looking at these, delving into these chants more and the dances. And there are various hula lineages that I'm excited that hopefully this will inspire others to look at other hula lineages and look at the connections of motions or movements, even footwork, motions to these chants, because we do have a better understanding of Hawaiian. Now that we're learning a lot more about Hawaiian language, and we have so many resources available to us.
So kind of related, the next question is, so where are you taking your research next? Like, what's your next topic?
You know, this has really pushed me to possibly look at other chants, other lineages, and to look at those lineages of specific dances that were danced by Ilalaole, to see if there are any connections there as far as motions, if there is something that was similar amongst a particular generation, or if these motions are very unique to just Ilalaole's hula lineage. That'll be something interesting to look at in the future. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So there's another question from Candice Kale Napua. I don't know if you're looking also on the Facebook.
No.
I'm she's just te hea oi e ho'omau ai keia no ia. Sorry.
Oh, mahalo nui e ke hoa.
And sorry, I think sorry, I might have missed a few questions. I'm just checking back. No, I don't see any others. Is there anything else you want to add to your talk?
No, actually, if there are no other questions, we'll punny. I'm gonna actually. It's good being at home. I'm gonna ask my keiki to kokua. Pele is actually taking care of our pepe hi'iaka. So the keiki are going to do a mele ma'i to close this evening. Puna nakamanu, and then we'll have a pahakia. So I will take my computer out into the living room. I know this isn't the most smooth transition here, but yeah, I'll take it into the living room, and then they will do a mele ma'i for you, and then we'll conclude this presentation.
I Puna nakamani hairi.
Oia, mahalo nui e nā hoa pau I ka akua ana I ke ahi. Ia o ko e Bianca mahalo nui ea. Ke kono ana mai mahalo for having me this evening for this particular presentation. West Maui, and hopefully I'll be able to hele kino to visit my aina ohana I ka wā kupono, yeah, at the right time. So aloha nui, ia ka kua pau. Aloha.
Aloha. Wow.